How's it going, everybody? Nathaniel from RCInsight here, and yes, today is a different looking video. That is right, I am in Minecraft. I have been debating doing some Minecraft-related content for quite some time, and I was looking today to see if there were any tier lists for Minecraft enchantments, and there was really nothing on YouTube, so I decided there's no better time than ever to start making some Minecraft-related content because I have been wanting to. And so today I'm going to be showing you guys my tier list of all the enchantments in Minecraft because really I could not find anything on YouTube that was like a really well done tier list or a tier list by someone who actually was knowledgeable of the game. And I play this game a lot and I love it. So we're doing a tier list. You guys let me know your tier list down in the comments below. I'm interested to see what you guys think, which ones of my picks you agree and disagree with. I may also do a full-on ranking of each enchantment from best to worst in my opinion, so let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing that. And without further ado, let's get into this tier list. So in this chest here, I have all the enchantments in the game. There are currently 38 of them, and there's a 39th on the way. These are organized in the order of which they show up in the creative menu, so that is how we are going to be going through them. So our first enchantment here is Protection. It has 4 levels and it goes on all of your armor. It is incompatible with the other types of protection in this game, so fire protection, projectile protection, and blast protection, but it kind of is all encompassing of everything, and so for that reason I have Protection as an A. I think Protection 4 is by far the best way to go when it comes to protection books. It's better than all the other protection options, and so that is Protection. Moving on, we have Fire Protection. Now, I did a mock list earlier in my head, and I debated this a lot, and I couldn't decide where I wanted to put Fire Protection, C or D, and I think ultimately I'm putting it at D. I'm trying to factor in a whole bunch of things when I'm considering these, from vanilla gameplay to servers, PvP, custom maps, all that sort of stuff. And the big thing with Fire Protection is we have fire resistance potions in the game that totally block out fire damage, and really people don't start enchanting stuff until they have diamond gear, and at that point you probably have access to potions and brewing stands. And so in this case, you know, fire resistance potions are not hard to make, and so as such it kind of makes Fire Protection irrelevant because you have fire resistance and protection is better. So why would you sacrifice your protection for fire protection when there's another way of getting it? And so yes, that is why I have fire protection at D. Next up here, we have Feather Falling. This one goes up to 4 as well, and this is our first S tier enchantment. I think it's pretty obvious as to why. Feather Falling is a lifesaver. Literally, I mean, without it, I don't know how I'd survive. It's both handy in terms of just in regular game, you can drop way more blocks than you normally would and you don't have to worry about death, but also if you accidentally fall off a cliff, get blown off something by a creeper, shot off by a skeleton, whatever, it's probably going to save your life. And the same goes for other game modes, including custom maps, PvP. It's a lifesaver if you are ever knocked off anywhere. Up next, we have Blast Protection. Once again, Blast Protection has 4 levels. And for Blast Protection, I put that in, I think I'm going to say, the B tier. It's definitely a step up over Fire Protection, which is down here. I debated between C and B, but I think Blast Protection is ultimately a B because there's nothing else in the game that can cover Blast Protection. There's no potions or anything like that. And so while I'd still rather have general protection over Blast Protection, Blast Protection is good, especially if you're dealing with a lot of creepers and ghasts, because it will save your life in those scenarios. You won't get instantly blown up if you have Blast Protection. So it definitely is the most useful of the non-general protection enchantments. Then we have Projectile Protection here, and Projectile Protection I think is a C. It's better than Fire Protection only because, again, like I said, with Fire Protection you have fire resistance potions. There's nothing to protect you from projectiles other than projectile protection. But then again, there's not really a lot of mobs that shoot projectiles. You have skeletons with arrows, and I don't know if tridents also count as projectiles. there's just not a whole lot of mobs in the game that are shooting things at you, so it's very limited and specific use, but it can be quite useful in PvP and custom maps where skeletons or other players with bows are quite common, and so for those reasons, I have it in C tier. Up next, we have Respiration. Respiration has 3 levels, and well, Respiration allows you to breathe underwater longer, and similar rationale here to my fire protection, though I think Respiration is a little bit better, so I'm going to put it in C tier. The big thing is that, again, you can get water breathing potions. They're a little bit harder to get than fire resistance potions, in my opinion. You need pufferfish. I guess if you have a lure 3 fishing rod, then that might help. But in general, like, there is still an alternative, and once you are at the end game, if you're doing anything underwater, you're probably going to be using water breathing potions and not just going underwater with Respiration, because Respiration lets you breathe longer, but it doesn't let you breathe infinitely. And so yeah, it's kind of it's neither here nor there for me. That's why I put it in the C column. Just, yeah, it's like I said, there's water breathing potions, and I think those kind of outweigh the Respiration, but Respiration is compatible with all the other helmet enchantments. It's not like the various protections that are mutually exclusive, so you're going to want to put it on anyway, and so it's just a very middle of the road enchantment. Up next, we have Aqua Affinity. This is our other helmet exclusive enchantment, and it only has 1 level, much better than Respiration, in my opinion, though. This is in the A tier for sure, if you ask me. It allows you to essentially mine things underwater at a regular speed, and you cannot mine things underwater at a regular speed without it. So definitely a very important enchantment, and I think one of the more valuable enchantments in the game. It's not quite S tier. That's saved for a pretty small group of enchantments, but it definitely is great, especially if you're doing any underwater builds, bases, ocean monument, all that sort of stuff. You're going to want to have Aqua Affinity. So moving on now, we have Thorns next. It has 3 levels, and this is another one that I debated for a long time about where to put, and ultimately I think I've settled on D. It is not as bad of an enchantment as it used to be. The biggest complaint has always been that Thorns uses up the durability on your armor faster, and that is true, but it became less of an issue when they added Mending into the game, because you had a way to repair your armor, so you didn't have to worry about it dying as quick, because you could obviously just fix it. However, there are still a lot of other issues with Thorns. It can be useful in PvP, but that is about the only application where it's useful. Particularly in survival Minecraft, it can actually be detrimental and not what you want if you are needing to capture hostile mobs for any reason, particularly if you're dealing with curing zombie villagers and they start attacking you, or you're moving zombie villagers around. They start attacking you, and by result, then they also start killing themselves. And so for those reasons, it uses more durability, so you got to repair your armor more often. And it definitely has its drawbacks in terms of when you're trying to move mobs around. You don't want to be hurting them, because you're obviously moving them for a reason. And so even though it's less bad as it used to be, I think it's moved out of the F tier. It is still no better than D, in my opinion. Then we have Depth Strider, which again has 3 levels, and this for me is another clear A tier enchantment. It allows you to move underwater at normal speeds, which is incredibly useful, particularly for going through more shallow bodies of water like rivers. It's a little less valuable since swimming was added into the game, but it still has its many uses, like I said, especially if you're dealing with smaller bodies of water. It's very helpful to help get around faster at a normal pace. And if you're, building water-themed base and stuff as well, it's quite nice to have. Up next, we have Frostwalker. This has 2 levels. And again, another one that I've debated. Ultimately, I think I put it in C because it is a cool enchantment. That's, I think, what keeps it at D. It is a cool enchantment. And, I mean, you get to walk on water with it, so that is nice. But it also has its drawbacks. It's not compatible with Depth Strider, and Depth Strider is the better of the 2 enchantments. And also, I found from having Frostwalker that if you have a base with water-oriented things, it can wreak havoc. So my sugarcane farm was constantly getting broken by the Frostwalker because it would freeze the ice, and then my sugarcane would pop off, and my bubble elevators and stuff were also kind of getting messed up. So I had to be really careful with Frostwalker. And so for those reasons, Frostwalker, as cool as an enchantment as it is, it's unfortunately not really practical unless you're wanting to run across the ocean, in which case, why would you not just fly or take a boat? Then we have the Curse of Binding. This is one of 2 cursed enchantments in the game, and cursed enchantments, obviously an F tier. I know what they were trying to go for when Mojang introduced the curses, but come on, man. Like, I mean, I guess you could use them for trolling friends in multiplayer worlds because villagers do sell them. But other than that, I don't know what you would not be putting this on your own armor voluntarily. It's more to prank other people, and that's a bit of a mean prank if you ask me. And so yeah, definitely an F tier enchantment. Then we have the newest enchantment in the game, and this is Soul Speed. It has 3 levels, and I think this is squarely in the B category. I really like Soul Speed. It's one of my favorite enchantments. It's rather difficult to get, but I think most players would not see it as really a necessity. It doesn't have much of a place in multiplayer, PvP, anything like that. Mostly just in solo survival worlds. It's absolutely a necessity if you are wanting to traverse Soul Sand valleys. You absolutely need Soul Speed then. But that is a very limited and specific use for the enchantment, and while it stacks with speed very nicely, you can make some very fast modes of transport with it, which is why I like it. I think most vanilla players even are not going to find too much of a use for it and not go out of their way to get it. So for those reasons, I put it in the B tier. Then we have Sharpness. Sharpness is a classic enchantment. It increases the damage that your sword does. It goes up to 5 levels. Clearly an A tier enchantment for me. Like I said, not quite an S tier. It's all encompassing, so it does more damage to all mobs, and I think it is a good enchantment at that, and one that is essential that you're going to want to have, but it's just not quite on that level that some of the other S tier enchantments are. But like I said, one of the better enchantments in the game for sure, so A tier it is. Then we have Smite, which also goes up to 5 levels. Now this is incompatible with Sharpness, but it is another sword enchant, and it only deals additional damage to undead mobs. And so for this reason, I'm going to put it in C. Now, I would put it in D, except the Wither is an undead mob, and so it is very useful to have a Smite sword when fighting the Wither. Otherwise, all the other undead mobs are really easy to fight. Zombies, skeletons, husks. I guess Wither skeletons are probably in that category as well. So it's a lot of easy disposable mobs, but the fact that the Wither is considered an undead mob, it's one of the few reasons to have a Smite sword is for the Wither, and so for that reason, I get it up to a C. Next, we have Bane of Arthropods. This one has 5 levels, and this is another one that I've really debated on where it goes. I had it in D earlier, but I'm going to put it in F. I had it in D with Thorns, but it's just so useless. It's so useless. Bane of Arthropods does extra damage to spiders, cave spiders, silverfish, I think endermites, and then also bees. Why on earth you would ever need to deal extra damage to bees is beyond me. And Sharpness already works on spiders and cave spiders, so why would you need Bane of Arthropods? I think Sharpness 5 is already a 1-hit hill for cave spiders anyway, so I don't know why you'd need Bane of Arthropods. It's a cool enchantment idea, but there's just not enough mobs that it applies to make it worth it, and it's incompatible with the other Sharpness enchantments. So yeah, for all those reasons, plus just its reputation as being awful, Bane of Arthropods gets the F tier. Then we have Knockback. This is another one where I think I'm willing to put it in the C tier. It does have its uses. Given that it's for the sword, in PvP, sometimes it can be handy to knock your opponent away. Other times, you don't really want to knock them away because then they're farther away to hit, and you could have them on the ropes. And it's kind of the same thing with survival, too. vanilla Minecraft, maybe it's nice for a zombie if he's on fire to have knockback to keep the fire away from you. But, you're knocking back a skeleton, you're just kind of working against yourself because you're giving the skeleton a chance to wind up and shoot you. And so it's a very middle of the road enchantment. There's times where it's useful, but there's also lots of times where it's not. And so it is in the C tier. Then we have Fire Aspect. Now this enchantment has 2 levels, and I think I'm going to put Fire Aspect in the B tier. Again, this is another one that I was kind of humming and hawing about earlier when I was thinking about making this list. And the biggest drawback with Fire Aspect is if you light something on fire with Fire Aspect and it hits you, then you get lit on fire. A perfect example is zombies. I have no idea how many times I've lit myself on fire because I lit a zombie on fire and then he hit me. But at the same time, having the additional fire damage is very nice, especially if you're dealing with PvP, and it has the perk of auto cooking food as well. So you're saving yourself a lot of resources and time when you go and slaughter all your cows and it comes out as cooked steak. And so some really nice benefits to Fire Aspect, and it's definitely an enchantment that you are going to want to have on your sword. The few drawbacks bring it down to a B, but this is a good enchantment overall. Next we have Looting. Looting has 3 levels, and this is an A tier enchantment for me. Looting is definitely a necessity if you are looking for tridents, and also for Wither Skeleton Skulls is probably the biggest reason you're going to want to have a looting sword. In the more early game, looting is great. After you have mob farms, it becomes less valuable because you just get things in large quantities anyway, and so that's why it's not in the S tier, because like certain mob drops, like gunpowder, for example, just make a creeper farm and all of a sudden it doesn't become that big of a deal. You don't need that much and the looting becomes much less relevant. But the looting you do want for both tridents and Wither Skeleton Skulls, and it's nice to get the extra drops and resources from anything, which is why looting is definitely an A tier enchantment. Then we have Sweeping Edge. Now, Sweeping Edge is another one of these ones that I wasn't really sure where I wanted to put it, but I think I've settled on it being... it's hard to say between B and C. It's somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure where. I think I'm going to put it at B just because it allows you to do almost full damage to other mobs in close proximity to the one that you're hitting. And that can be annoying if you're like swinging at a skeleton and you hit your dog by accident. But for mob farms, particularly XP-based mob farms, this is so great. Like, my Enderman farm would not work without Sweeping Edge. If I just had to kill each mob at a time, oh, that would be terrible. So really, Sweeping Edge is critical for any XP-based mob farm, which is a huge driving force of the game. It influences mending and also, just the drops that you're getting in general. And so for all those reasons, it's a B tier enchantment. It's not an A tier enchantment, but it definitely deserves the B ranking because it is needed in order to make some essential items in the game. Next, we have Efficiency. Efficiency has 5 levels, and this is another enchantment that is clearly in the A tier if you ask me. If you have Efficiency 5, it allows you to insta-mine quite a few blocks in this game, especially if you mix it with a haste beacon, then you're really rolling, and insta-mining is quite great, especially for mining itself, both in the overworld and the nether. Being able to shred through the underground is very, very satisfying and the most efficient way of mining. It does have some of its drawbacks in terms of if you're like working on building in a base or something, you can break many more blocks than you need to. Same thing with dirt and grass with shovels, and so it can be a little annoying when you're trying to just break 1 block and you break 5. But overall, it is a very powerful enchantment and one that you're going to want to have, and so it's an A tier for sure. Then we have Silk Touch. Silk Touch is another one that is in the A tier. As you can see, there's a lot of enchantments piling up in the A tier. Now, not quite the S tier if you ask me, but very convenient at that. To get solid ore blocks is probably the main draw of Silk Touch, I would say. It helps kind of minimize some clutter in your inventory because blocks like redstone and lapis drop a lot more than just 1 when you mine them. So Silk Touch is handy for that. It's also handy for other reasons, like getting stone without, having to smelt cobblestone back into stone. And depending on what block you're using, there's other uses as well if you want grass blocks, that sort of thing. So Silk Touch is definitely handy to get to some otherwise unobtainable blocks, and I'd say is a pretty important Minecraft enchantment that has a good amount of value, but it just doesn't sneak into the S tier. It's an A tier enchantment and one you're going to want to have, but it's not quite at the top. Next, we have Unbreaking. It has 3 levels, and again, this is an A tier enchantment. In the past, I would have said this was an S tier enchantment, but with the introduction of Mending and the ability to repair your weapons with experience, Unbreaking becomes slightly less valuable because you never have to get new tools again with Mending, whereas in the past, Unbreaking would extend the longevity of your tools until you eventually had to make new ones. You don't have to worry about that anymore, so Unbreaking is still very nice to have, as it allows you to use your tools for longer before you have to go and repair them with your XP farm. Particularly for your Elytra, it is an essential enchantment, but it's not quite as good as it used to be, thanks to Mending. Then there is Fortune. Fortune has 3 levels, and this is our second S tier enchantment. Fortune is obviously one of the most powerful enchantments in this game, because with Fortune 3, you can get, 4+ diamonds from a single diamond ore, and same thing goes for the other non-smelted ores, so redstone and lapis and emeralds and coal. You are getting quartz as well. You're getting way more bang for your buck with Fortune. And then less notable things like saplings and stuff as well. But yeah, Fortune, particularly on the diamond front, is an incredibly powerful enchantment that really lets you maximize your ore outputs. And so for that reason, is absolutely deserving of the S tier level. Next, we have Power. It has 5 levels. This is a bow enchantment, and it makes your bow considerably stronger. This one I debated going between A and S, but I think it's another A tier enchantment. It's a really good enchantment. It significantly increases the damage your bow does, and is really something that you're going to want to have for both PvP and for just regular vanilla. But again, it's just not on the same level as some of the S tier enchantments. Like the A tier enchantments are really good. They're classic enchantments. They're ones that you're going to want to have, but they're not game changers like S tier are. Then we have Punch. This is another one where I debated. It's definitely better than Knockback. I think that the Punch is a B tier enchantment, because with Punch, you're already dealing with a ranged attack, and so because of that, the knockback here can actually be useful. When you're up close, you might not always want to knock someone back, but with Punch, you are obviously shooting them from a ways away, and so that extra knockback can be useful. It might be enough to knock another opponent off a cliff in like PvP or Skywars or something like that, and in different mini games, maps, and even single player, Punch can definitely be useful in fending off things like creepers and knocking hostile mobs off cliffs and ledges. And so for those reasons, I have put it in the B tier. Definitely better than Knockback, because you're already dealing with a ranged attack. Then we have Flame. This is another one where I say it's a B tier. Much like Fire Aspect, it's literally the bow equivalent of the Fire Aspect. It will also light TNT if you shoot it. It has some other unique functionalities. It'll also cook food like Fire Aspect does, but at the end of the day, it's just Flame. I feel like it's there. It's been there forever, and it serves its purpose. You're going to want it on your bow, but it's nothing super overpowered. Then we have Infinity. Now, this one I am torn on, but ultimately, this is like a C or a D for me. I think I have to put it in C, just because if you have one arrow, you get infinite arrows. So at the beginning of the game, this is a great enchantment to have. But towards the end of the game, Infinity loses all its value. In fact, you know what? I know a lot of people, I'm probably going to disagree with this one, but I'm putting Infinity in the D tier. And there's a few reasons why. First off, since Mending was introduced, Infinity and Mending have been made incompatible, and as such, I think Mending is the enchantment that you're going to want on your bow. And once you get later on in the game, you have a skeleton farm, skeleton spawner, whatever. Arrows are so easy to come by that all of a sudden having Infinity doesn't really matter that much. And Infinity doesn't apply to tipped and spectral arrows anyway, which I feel like is what endgame players are probably going to lean towards using to begin with. And so if Infinity doesn't apply to those, like, why would you take that over the Mending? Yeah, it just, since Mendings came out, it really loses a lot of its usages. And so, yeah, Infinity for me, it really is only applicable early game. And in maps, I suppose it can be handy as well. But yeah, D tier. Next, we have Luck of the Sea. This is a fishing rod enchantment. It goes all the way up to level 3. It allows you to get very good things from fishing, and so for that reason, I will put it in the A class. It allows you to get rare items, including enchantments. Since they nerfed AFK fishing farms, it's a little less valuable, but it is nonetheless still valuable because you can also get stuff like name tags and saddles, which are hard to come by. So very useful enchantment that has a lot of value and allows you to get some hard to find and exclusive items with relative ease. Then we have Lure, the other fishing enchantment, and this is a C. You're not going to really want to be doing too much fishing without Lure. It goes up to 3 levels, and it drastically decreases the amount of time it takes for you to catch a fish. So you really want to have Lure and Luck of the Sea in combination, but if there was one that you had to take over the other, you definitely take Luck of the Sea over Lure any day, because being able to fish quickly really is meaningless if you cannot fish out good items and you're only fishing fish. And so yes, Lure 3 is in the C tier. Next, we have Loyalty 3, and this is our next S tier enchantment, in my opinion. It's what makes the Trident a usable weapon. You have a weapon that offers decent melee damage, basically comparable to enchanted swords in terms of melee. It has a ranged attack, and thanks to Loyalty, like a bow, it returns to you, so it's a reusable ranged attack that deals a lot of damage, and also it flies underwater like a regular arrow, like water does not impede it. So overall, it's a really, really powerful enchantment for the Trident, because the Trident is an awesome, awesome weapon and a very versatile one at that. And as such, Loyalty just makes it even better and even more usable and versatile. So S tier enchantment. Then we have Impaling. Impaling is a bit of a weird one. I put it down here at a B. It's not as good as stuff like Sharpness because it only applies to mobs that spawn in water. So it is a Trident enchantment that has 5 levels, and it deals additional damage to mobs, but only those that naturally spawn in water. And so that really basically limits you to drowns, fish, I guess turtles and dolphins if you want to kill those, squids and guardians. So it just has a limited pool that it actually affects. Now, of course, the Trident does do lots of damage to begin with, so it just kind of doesn't do a whole lot, and that's why it doesn't have a lot of value. So it is especially useful for taking on ocean monuments, but that's why it's in the B tier. Then we have Riptide, and this one's tough. I mean, really, it doesn't have a lot of usage, so that's why I put it in the C tier, because really, you're never going to use Riptide, quite honestly. It's really fun to play around with, and it's one of the most cool and unique enchantments in the game, hence why I have it at C, but in terms of practical usages, there's virtually none, and so I can't justify putting it any higher than that. Next, we have Channeling, and another Trident enchantment, another S tier enchantment. Channeling allows you to strike any mob in the game with lightning. You throw your Trident, and where it lands, lightning strikes. And this is particularly valuable because it helps you convert things like villagers to witches, if you wanted to do that, pigs to zombie pigmen, if I'm not mistaken. It is the way that you can get the elusive brown mushrooms, but most importantly, it is the easiest way to get charged creepers, and it gives you a way to consistently get charged creepers, which you need if you are looking to collect mob heads. And so for those reasons, it is an incredibly powerful and also an incredibly fun enchantment to play around with S tier. Then we have Multi-Shot. This is a crossbow enchantment. It doesn't have a lot of practical use, so I'm going to put it in the D tier. I had it in the C earlier, but I don't think there's enough usages for it to justify being up there. It allows you to shoot 3 arrows at once out of a crossbow, and while crossbows are unique and fun, there's never really a scenario where you need to shoot kind of 3 mobs that are like within a 180-degree plane of the player view, and so it just doesn't really have that much use, quite honestly, even though it's cool in theory and it makes some really cool firework launchers. Other than that, it's pretty useless. Then there's Quick Charge, and believe it or not, I am considering Quick Charge to be an S tier enchantment. Now that might be a little controversial. I think I had it in A earlier, but the thing about Quick Charge is it actually puts the charge time of crossbows above that of normal bows. And crossbows also have piercing, and so when you stack the two of those, you get something that is incredibly powerful. And crossbows can be preloaded and then shot as well, and they can stay loaded in your inventory, so you can also insta-shoot them. And so I don't know, I think Quick Charge at 3 levels, Quick Charge 3 is really good. It's a really good enchantment, and I think it's deserving of the S tier because it's enough to kind of at least push crossbows to compete with bows and even make them better in some scenarios, both in the base game, but also especially in PvP. Having that additional speed when you are winding up your weapon is just really useful. And so yeah, S tier for that. Getting down to the end here, next we have Piercing 4, which I just mentioned goes great with Quick Charge, but it is just an A tier enchantment in my opinion. Like I said, 4 levels, and it is a really good enchantment. There's a lot of scenarios where piercing actually is useful, much more so than multi-shot. There are lots of times when you can find yourself shooting into a crowd of mobs, and so piercing arrows do the same damage to all mobs that it hits. It can hit up to 5, and so it definitely is useful, especially if you're in confined spaces and trying to shoot things. Really valuable enchantment, but not quite that S tier caliber. Then we have Mending. This is our final S tier enchantment and our game changer. Probably, in my opinion, the best enchantment in the game. Mending is just so powerful. It allows all of your tools to self-repair, tools, armor, all that stuff. It self-repairs, and so you never have to worry about making constant new sets of armor or finding XP to repair your pickaxes and stuff because you have to combine it with another pickaxe or another sword or all that stuff. None of that matters anymore. You just need an XP farm and you can hold onto your max level gear forever. Mending is incredibly powerful and, in my opinion, the best enchantment in the game, and it's not that close. Finally, here we have the Curse of Vanishing, and this is, of course, another F tier enchantment. Again, like I said, I know what they were going for with the cursed enchantments. Vanishing is even worse than Binding. Binding, specific to armor, you just can't take it off. But with Vanishing, man, you die and your item's gone forever. If you were trying to troll a friend with Vanishing, that's just really mean. And if not, why on earth would you ever use something with Curse of Vanishing unless you just found it in an end city and you didn't have anything better? Like, to lose that item upon death, that really sucks. I don't know why you'd ever want to have Curse of Vanishing on any of your items. Now, there is one more in here, and what is that, you're asking? It is a enchantment that actually does not exist in the base game yet, and that is Cleaving. It has been in the combat test snapshots, and so I am going to put that in here for now because I can. Obviously, it is not officially in the game yet. It's just in developmental versions, but it does appear like it's going to be coming into the game at some point, and it is an axe exclusive enchantment that really will increase the axe's value in PvP, and so I believe it will both increase the damage that an axe does, and it will offer a higher chance to disable the enemy's shield so that you can get some more hits in. And so in theory, it sounds pretty promising. I don't know if it'll mean that then you will no longer be able to apply sharpness to axes. We don't fully know what the ramifications of it will be. But in theory, it sounds pretty cool. And so for that reason, I'm going to put it in the B tier for now, but that is subject to change when it officially arrives in the game. We'll get a better idea of just how good of an enchantment it is. And so, yeah, that is my tier list, guys. I think I was pretty thorough. As you can see, a lot in the A column up there. There was a lot that was kind of in between B and D there where I didn't know exactly where it fell, and a lot of them fell into the C category. I'm very firm on my S category, though. I don't think that is going to change. I know some of you may not agree with all of my S category choices, but I think they are clearly far and away the best enchantments in the game that I have up there. And yeah, that is my enchantment tier list, guys. So let me know what your tier lists are again. Let me know how wrong you think I am, especially when it comes to the S class. And I feel like I definitely ticked some people off by putting Infinity down in the D class as well. This is the first ever Minecraft video I have done. So if you guys want to leave a like to show your support, subscribe even to show your support, that'd be great, because that'd be a great indicator of whether I should continue to make some more videos like this, because I have lots of ideas in terms of Minecraft videos that I can do, but I've just been hesitant to. So if you are interested in that, like and subscribe to show that I should be doing more Minecraft related content, because I happily will. I love this game so much, but I don't want to do it if no one's interested in watching it, and it's very different from my channel, so I don't want to alienate my base. So yeah, please show your support if you want to see more videos like this. And with all that said, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.